It's Monday night, and you know what that means. Jersey First TV proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And yes, I am New Jersey's premier award winning journalist, top 50 Latino, via the Latino Spirit Online magazine, without a doubt, the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media, and without a doubt, the people's choice and the people's voice. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe. Ladies and gentlemen, happy Monday to you all. We're back in our regular 6 p.m. time slot. That'll kind of fluctuate throughout the summer months. So, of course, always stay tuned for that. I want to thank you all for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so via StreamYard on Facebook Live, certainly on the Jersey First YouTube page, as well as on LinkedIn and all the social media platforms. Speaking of which, folks, all it takes is 2 seconds. As I always mention every single broadcast, sharing is caring. Make sure you check out Jersey First and Real Talk with Fernando Uribe and all of our social media platforms. Make sure you like us on Facebook. Of course, follow Jersey First on Instagram and Twitter. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well, at the Fernando Zone. Also, please subscribe to the Jersey First YouTube page. Our followers are growing each and every week. And of course, wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify or SoundCloud, download it and take Jersey First TV with you wherever, whenever you travel during these summer months. And ladies and gentlemen, I cannot say enough how proud I am to be on the dream team of Garden State Media, folks. That's right. It is Jersey First. And of course, Jersey First TV, brand new episodes of the Nader Narrative, starring the amazing Elizabeth Nader, do broadcast and premiere every Thursday via jerseyfirst.org/TV. And of course, brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap with AJ Malilo and Stephen Rambolo also air on Thursdays via the Jersey First website, also on the Jersey First YouTube page. And without a doubt, folks, on Monday nights live, new episodes of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe air. Folks, it's the best analysis and breakdown of what's going on in New Jersey politics and even regional and local politics as well. Folks, nobody does it better than Jersey First TV. We're always educating, entertaining, and of course, informing here every single week on Jersey First. And folks, again, as a reminder, during the month of June, yes, I get to brag a little bit because Jersey First, of course, does sponsor Real Talk with Fernando Uribe, and Real Talk turns 3 years old this month, of course, 3 years and counting, going strong again. Without all of you, ladies and gentlemen, the strong traffic, and of course, the devotion, all the comments on social media, without all of you, the traffic and sort of the momentum that Real Talk with Fernando Uribe continues to carry every single week would not be possible without you. And speaking of strong traffic, folks, yes, ladies and gentlemen, hey, nothing's boosted, nothing's sponsored. It's all organic, just like the produce section at Whole Foods, folks. That's right. Strong organic traffic continues on Real Talk with Fernando Uribe. As you can see there, impressive numbers for the month of May. I'm sure they'll continue well into the month of June. Folks, you definitely want to stick around because during my final thoughts, I'm going to let you know who and what doesn't sit well with me in Garden State media. But folks, first and foremost, what I like to do is interview individuals, not just, legislative candidates, incumbents, right? But people all across the media spectrum, right? Because what we do here on this show, okay, without a doubt, is bring you the exclusives that nobody else is bringing you. And folks, this week is no exception. He is the distinguished editor of the Jersey City Times and a big fan of not just this show, but obviously my Hudson County podcast, Talking the Hudson, which you can listen to on blogtalkradio.com/talkingthehudson. New episodes will air this month, so you definitely want to tune in for that, folks. But he's my good friend, the great Aaron Morrill, joins us tonight on Real Talk. Aaron, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Fernando. It's great to be with you.
It's always a treat to talk to you, man. And certainly, folks, sharing is caring. Click that share button real quick here as you tune in live on Real Talk via Jersey First TV. Aaron, again, folks, check out Jersey City Times at jcitytimes.com. Amazing content at a local level. And in a time when we're seeing local news sort of dying out, like the New York Mets in October, that's not the case with the Jersey City Times because traffic remains strong there, and so does its content. Aaron, when we think about sort of the epiphany that we have, whether it was me starting this show or other programs I've hosted, what was your epiphany about creating the Jersey City Times, and what was its mission?
Well, you probably know I was involved in sort of local politics as an activist prior to starting the Jersey City Times. I had worked on a number of causes, including the pay-to-play legislation that we passed back in the aughts. I worked a lot with the mayor on that when he was still a councilman, and I was working on a variety of issues. I got involved. The mayor put me on a couple of his transition committees, and I kind of had one foot in the political world and the good government world, and I think as the teens wore on, I saw that there was sort of a narrative in Jersey City that was not being questioned about how things were going, what was happening in Jersey City. I didn't see a particularly vigorous press questioning some of the assumptions about policies and about the general trajectory of Jersey City. And I thought, there needs to be a more independent news outlet that kind of looks under the hood and looks at what's going on, does a little more investigative work, and just holds the powers that be to account, as the press should do. I don't think the press should be too cozy with those in power. I think you have to have a somewhat adversarial relationship, and that's kind of a requirement, and it goes with the territory. So
I was just about to say that's a great word, adversarial. I think that's one word we could use, right, when it comes to the Jersey City Times presently. But again, folks, don't get it twisted. It's great content, very informative, very Jersey-centric. And again, their editor, Aaron Morrill, joins us here on Real Talk. If you're just tuning in live here, folks, sharing is caring. Click that share button right now and support Jersey First TV. Aaron, let's get to Jersey City. Let's get into what's going on right now. And I know one of the biggest topics here in Jersey City is the right to counsel law that I believe now has the sufficient amount of votes on the city council to pass at the next meeting, which I believe is this week. Listen, Jersey City as a whole has become unaffordable for many working class and lifelong Jersey City residents. We're seeing development all over the place, 440, down in Greenville, Jersey City Heights, Gerald Square, downtown, wherever, take your pick. There just seems to be an enormous amount of development. Rents are just skyrocketing, and I think that's really crippling a lot of residents. And I think that we've seen activists, we've seen both people on the right and the left politically in Hudson County talk about why this law is so beneficial. So in a nutshell, why is the right to counsel law so crucial right now?
Well, that's a good question. I have not seen myself some granular statistics about evictions in Jersey City specifically. I know I've seen some countywide statistics, but I'm not sure that the statistics exist on a granular level as to how many people are being illegally evicted or evicted unfairly. However, I understand completely the impetus from a political standpoint. Tenants' rights and housing issues, affordability are the biggest issues in Jersey City right now, I would say. And it's not surprising that it is a winning issue if you're a progressive or center left to try and provide some sort of protection for tenants in these difficult, expensive times people live in. So I think it's important politically for people who are in positions of power to make a showing on behalf of tenants. And I think that that's probably the main impetus. But I also think, I think to a certain degree it comes from a good place. People don't want to see poor people who can't afford lawyers getting railroaded in court. So it has a resonance that I think that probably appeals to a lot of people. It's a David and Goliath thing, and people want to protect David. That's basically the way they see it. But, it'll be interesting to see what the statistics show and how effective it is. As we know, it's probably not going to be effective for a couple of years. In effect, that is. It's actually not going to be implemented for a couple of years for various reasons. So we'll see what happens. It's not clear to me what the result will be.
No, absolutely. And folks, if you're just joining us right now, it's 6:10 here on the East Coast on Jersey First TV. My guest tonight is the distinguished editor of the Jersey City Times, Aaron Morrill, join us here on Real Talk. And Aaron, listen, you brought up the point too about the fact that while it seems like there's an expediency and urgency here with this ordinance potentially to help Jersey residents fight evictions. And listen, great point there by you as always about looking at statistics, because again, we're data guys. We want to see exactly, is it hysteria? Is it really a serious problem? Is it being overblown? I would venture to guess, if I had to put some money on the line, I would say it probably is not being overblown. It is a serious problem. I think, listen, it's 3 years later, and while we're out of COVID per se, I mean, people economically are still even trying to recover, and that's not easy. And I would argue that as rents continue to skyrocket, everything else is becoming more expensive, right? Which is sort of like a big theme in New Jersey overall. I would argue that rents is something that people hopefully were thinking that it would not be suffocating them, and that's the case. I'm just sort of surprised that with all the urgency, again, we have advocacy groups going to council meetings, taking to social media to raise awareness, why this is still going to take another maybe 2 or 3 years to implement. And in the meantime, I think it's going to really leave a lot of Jersey residents out in the cold. And I'm not sure why somebody somewhere wasn't thinking about that, but maybe that's just me complaining for the sake of complaining.
Right. With all of these initiatives, I think there's always the question of implementation and enforcement.
Yeah.
And in my experience, many of these initiatives sound great, but on the enforcement level, you don't see the follow through. So, for instance, a few years back, there was a big hue and cry about noise and the need for a noise ordinance that would clamp down on noise.
Yeah.
Just today, I was looking at a thread on Nextdoor, which is a place that you can really get the pulse of what's going on in Jersey City and in the neighborhoods. People are just up in arms about noise. About people using boom boxes and large blaring car stereos and things like that. And there was a huge effort legislatively a few years ago to pass a new noise ordinance and modernize it. And, this became, sort of the cause du jour. And yet today people are complaining that there's absolutely no enforcement. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with this right to counsel, whether this will be sort of a political exercise or and sort of an opportunity to it's a virtue signal, or will it be something that really has teeth and really helps tenants? That is probably the question I would have, and I think people who watch City Hall would have, whether this will really work. And obviously, it's going to be a few years before we know.
Aaron, speaking about City Hall, certainly there is a perception out there, and this is not news to anybody, obviously, who follows Jersey City Times and obviously who's ever listened to our podcast episodes in the past. But there seems to be a perception out there that the Jersey Times, while trying to, again, demonstrate that sort of journalistic integrity and be objective, it's perceived by some of the political elites in Jersey City and in Hudson County that it's not very Stephen Fulop friendly. I know that you have been very adamant about calling out the mayor's record on different issues, crime, development, quality of life issues, things of that nature. And of course, the stakes are now being raised. We know that Mayor Fulop announced earlier this year that via a video that he published on Twitter, I think on Instagram as well, which coincidentally looked like it was filmed in October, but I mean,
yeah, that was that whole issue, right?
Don't ask me. I'm just hypothesizing here. But the mayor announced he would not be running for another term in 2025. Yeah. More on that later, because I really want to pick your brain about who you like to see in the mayor's office, or who the big players are going to be. But Stephen Fulop is the first Democrat to announce his candidacy for the 2025 gubernatorial campaign. I'm sure there are other Democrats, and we'll get to them in a minute. But again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you've been concerned about Stephen Fulop's record as mayor. Is that going to carry over in your coverage as he's running for governor, Aaron?
Well, he's still got a few years as mayor, so I think that he has to be covered like he's the mayor and not the candidate. He's still the mayor. He's still responsible for what happens in Jersey City, and I'm going to cover him very much as a mayor. Somebody asked me, are you going to be covering the mayor's campaign for governor? And I said, well, not really. That's That's kind of more a statewide issue, maybe for some other outlet like New Jersey Monitor or something like that. I think that I want to continue to cover the mayor's performance as mayor, even though his gubernatorial run has kind of taken the people's eyes off what he's doing as mayor. And I don't want to pick out just the mayor. Obviously, there's a city council that enacts much of what the mayor's agenda is. And so to a certain extent, we're going to be looking at the city council as well. I mean, people, I know there are people that think we are anti-Fulop. However, I will point out that nobody has pointed out anything that we've printed and, digitally that was inaccurate. I don't think truth is biased. Truth is the truth. And so what we have published about crime or about any other aspect of the mayor's record has been vetted pretty carefully. I started out as a lawyer, and one of the things that you do as a lawyer that it trains you to do is cite everything that you assert. In other words, have proof for what you assert. Have a case, have the facts behind you. And I try and be very careful that way. So the mayor has yet to contest any factual assertion that I have made or that we have made. I'm proud of what we've written, and I challenge anybody to question it.
Aaron, obviously, I think that based on that statement alone, it's going to lead me to ask you, well, yes, you're not going to cover the gubernatorial campaign, but a lot of what's going to be dissected about Stephen Fulop, probably by his opponents in the field, which, again, speculation is running rampant. It could be U.S. Representative Mikey Sherrill, U.S. Representative Josh Gottheimer, both who present a lot of big problems for Stephen Fulop fundraising-wise. Stephen Fulop can fundraise, but Josh Gottheimer and Mikey Sherrill can out fundraise him. And that's fact. That's not, again, to your point, that's not, bloviating. That's not conjecture. That's fact, what I'm saying.
Right.
Obviously, we're looking at Newark Mayor Ross Baraka. And let's be fair, too. If the state Democratic Committee Chair, Leroy Jones, and Essex County Executive Carl DiVincenzo jump on the Baraka train, that's going to spell disaster for Stephen. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm not saying it to being harsh or Fernando's being a hater. I'm not being a hater. I'm speaking factually. If any of the aforementioned three people jump into this race against Stephen Fulop, Stephen's going to have a hell of a time trying to win that primary. But having said that, the easiest thing to do is to go after his record, which I'm pretty certain other Democrats are going to do. So let's talk about that record. I know you talk about, it's not just on Fulop, it's also the city council, where some would say have enabled that record. So let's dissect it. What stands out right now for you that is of concern concerning Stephen Fulop as mayor?
Well, most recently, the issue of city finances really leaps out. I mean, we just saw that the city had a $90-odd million dollar, thankfully not billion, $1 million deficit, which had to be closed using bonds. So we basically borrowed against the future to pay off this deficit for this year. And I don't think people have really concentrated their minds on, what that means. It sounds very much like what New York City did prior to getting into, its famous fiscal troubles back in the late 70s or, and it's the Gerald Ford drop dead period of New York City history. Well, borrowing to pay off this year's deficit is a very troubling event. Some $50 million has to be paid back just for this year's deficit over the next 5 years, which is going to hem in the budgets over the next few years. So I think, and the mayor has said that the reason for this is that there was a fall off in city revenue due to COVID, but has not identified what revenue fell off due to COVID. And I'm trying to wrap my head around that. I haven't seen any revenue stream that was directly affected by COVID in my look at the city budget. There's a fall off apparently and some revenues from parking lots, but really he has not explained, in my opinion, where this huge deficit came from. What we do see, looking at it, is potentially the problem was related to pilots. These abatements that were given to lots of buildings downtown over the last 20 years, and those are going offline now. They're going market rate, and they now are paying taxes both to the county, to the schools, and to Jersey City. And Jersey City is no longer getting this massive amount of pilot revenue. That fell off precipitously last year, and it seems like that's something that the city should have known was coming. So there are a lot of questions that people need to ask about this budget and this need to borrow $50-some million to close it, the budget deficit.
Aaron, also too, I would say that the mayor's record, I think, is also going to be under the microscope concerning quality of life, crime, which, again, based on who I'm speculating is going to jump into the gubernatorial race on the Democratic side, I think is going to have a field day. Now, again, look at me wrong. I mean, Ross Baraka's Newark is a disaster too. So, but the idea that he's going to have people dissecting his record, I think, is going to be interesting because, you know, Stephen has sort of been this, I hate to use the word progressive because that word's become so convoluted about what's a progressive and everything else. But it seems like a lot of Jersey City, and at least what Stephen Fulop is trying to implement, isn't like AOC woke progressive, even James Solomon progressive. I think it's maybe progressive light. I think if that's how he wants to sort of characterize his record. And I don't know if that's accurate either.
My perception of the mayor is that he's a centrist Democrat.
Okay.
He might even be right of center Democrat, you know, in the old Scoop Jackson sort of mold. You know, if he were a national politician, he would be pro-defense, probably low taxes, you know, socially liberal, but fiscally conservative. He's a conservative guy who when there were calls for defunding the Jersey City police, he said no, to his credit. And I would say, I mean, I think he, you know, I got to give credit where credit is due. I think he rightly saw that as a losing position. And he called that one right. But he's a moderate. He's not a progressive at all. He's using the term progressive, but he's not a progressive. James Solomon is a progressive, I think, as would Frank Gilmore be, and
Sure. Yep.
of course the progressives that ran recently in the primary.
Sure.
Those
now,
are the
no, certainly. And again, it sort of makes us think about, as you're covering the mayor for the remainder of his term, right? As he's sort of like multitasking and running for governor too, and getting and picking up endorsements all over the state, it appears. One of the things that obviously will be in the discussion will be about, well, who's going to succeed him in 2025? And there's a lot of names I'm hearing out there. Certainly Council President Joyce Waterman, Councilman James Solomon, to some extent, County Commissioner Bill O'Day. And this is the way I sort of break it down, where, you know, James Solomon's act plays well in the downtown area, the bougie, uppity, you know, left of center, progressives, you know, in some extent, some virtue signalers, whatever. But I mean, that act plays well, though, Aaron, down there. But citywide, in the Heights, down South Side, West Side, again, I don't know if that's a winning combination for James Solomon, which is why someone like Bill O'Day, without a doubt, is a name that we keep hearing. And I think the window's closing for Bill O'Day. When it comes to, hey, his mayoral aspirations, a lot of people have been saying for a long time, hey, listen, when's Bill going to run? When's Bill going to run? When's his turn? When's his turn? Well, I would say 2025, that window's closing pretty quickly. We're also seeing, for example, Daniel Rivera. We're hearing even former governor Jim McGreevey. I know his name is being floated around. I know the story broke with Hudson County View with John Hines last week about, hey, maybe the former governor is going to take an attempt at running for mayor in 2025. A lot of names, very different Democrats, Aaron.
Yeah, I think O'Day is an interesting person. It comes across as a very authentic person who is comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah, that's right.
I get the sense that he's got a good sort of antenna he can read the room well. I think he's got a humility about him that I think is probably going to be attractive to a lot of people. He's a real Jersey City guy.
Yeah.
I would say Musab Ali is also a Jersey City guy in a different way, and would be probably a strong candidate given his roots in Jersey City and his work on the school board. And James has, a strong base downtown, and he's very smart, and he's a policy guy.
Sure.
Whether he can connect with the rest of the city outside of Ward E is an open question. So that's so if I were to, if I were to handicap it, I would say citywide, a guy like Bill O'Day probably translates better than James. Musab Ali probably also.
How about McGreevey, Aaron? Because it seems like some establishment, very powerful Democrats, and again, it's a nonpartisan municipal election, but we all know that obviously getting the blessings of the HCDO is sometimes make or break for candidates. Not the case with James Solomon. He's won 2 elections running off the line and has won so very convincingly. That's not the case, obviously, with others who have tried to do the same. But I'm hearing Jim McGreevey's name with a lot of important people who seem to believe that the former governor, who, listen, irrespective of what people may think about him personally and what happened in 2004, which is basically 20 years ago, it's a very different time now. And certainly I think that Jim McGreevey has, changed his the perception of him. I think his political capital has grown exponentially in recent years. Jim McGreevey might be one of those dark horses or even a potential favorite, though, Aaron.
Yeah, I think McGreevey, he has Jersey City roots, and, he's got name recognition. The only downside for him, obviously, is that it might be seen as a little bit of carpetbagging, a little bit of, yesterday's news, and opportunistic for him. But name recognition counts for a lot in politics, and he's certainly got it. So I wouldn't count him out. And as you say, the endorsement of the HCDO is pretty important.
And speaking of the HCDO, obviously last week with primary day came and went. A lot of sort of uneventful races for state Senate seats. Obviously, all the incumbents, even the new incumbents per se, ran pretty much a very easy, smooth campaign. My mayor is also my state senator up here in the 33rd legislative district, the new 33rd. And listen, let's be fair, folks. Nobody gets out the vote better than Brian Stack anywhere in New Jersey. Never mind Hudson County. Anywhere in New Jersey. You look at him, and I talk to Brian often, and I don't think he sleeps. I don't know what he lives on. I don't know if it's just like Red Bull, coffee. I don't know. But he's the hardest working man that I know of, I think, in state politics in terms of getting the vote out and being out there in turning out numbers and data. But what's interesting, though, is last week during primary day, some of the county commissioner races were not so cut and dry. And we saw that in Hoboken. Obviously, Anthony Romano, certainly that district changed a little bit with now incorporating parts of the Jersey City Heights. Maybe some of downtown. And his progressive challenger, Ron Batista, you want to talk about making him sweat. David Wildstein, the editor of the New Jersey Globe, good friend and a fan of the show, who I had on last week, didn't call that race until late into the night. And I talked to Romano, off the record, and it was a close race. And I think a lot of people were surprised about Batista making it as razor thin as it was, Aaron.
Yeah, I think it was heartening, if you're one who believes in a multi-party system, to see the progressives in a couple of races do as well as they did. But it was sort of a sweet and bitter election, because once again, if you're a believer in having a political sort of ecosystem that is diverse, to see the HCDO just sort of romp over guys like Michael Griffin and others, it was, I think, for the progressives and for people who just want to see some diversity in politics, it was a little bit depressing. But Romano obviously had some issues, but I guess Bautista was running for a second time, so he's had a little more name recognition. I think the HCDO obviously outspent the progressives by just a massive amount.
Yes.
It was not even close. And I figured out what Eliana Little spent per vote as opposed to Craig Guy, and it was, I think she spent $5 or $3, and he spent $30 for each of his votes. So she was a much more efficient vote getter than he was. He had to spend a lot to get those votes, and he had the money. I think that the progressives need to hone their message a little bit, probably, to be more competitive and perhaps talk a little bit more about sort of kitchen table issues, bread and butter issues.
I was just about to say that, Aaron, because I talk about that all the time on this show. I'm really one of the few opinion journalists in the state that is doing that. And I know sometimes it rubs people the wrong way, the way I say things, which is nothing new. But when I say something like, listen, I don't care about pronouns, I care about property taxes. It sounds a little harsh, but I think that for regular people, these kitchen table issues matter. And I think that in an area like Hudson County, where it's as blue as Windex, let's not get it twisted. Again, I think it's a more blue collar, working class type of Democrat, as opposed to, being woke and progressive. That works across the river in Queens with, AOC. I don't think that, and I would argue that this is where the Progressive Democrats caucus in Hudson County and in New Jersey, I think, get it wrong. They're under this sort of misguided impression that, hey, running an AOC, running women from the squad, running these type of insufferable ideologues is going to work in an area like Hudson County, where, yes, it's solidly Democrat and they'll be true to the party, but it's not as, I think, far left as people think it, or at least those on the progressive wing would want it to be. Are they making some inroads? I mean, we saw that with Bautista, but I mean, are we seeing where there could ultimately be a real civil war between progressives and blue collar, sort of moderate middle class Democrats at some point?
I don't think you will see that until the progressives get a little more practical in terms of their messaging. I think that, like you say, and like I said, I think that, people ultimately are concerned about taxes. They're concerned about quality of life issues. And there are a lot of, obviously, social justice related issues that people care a great deal about. But I don't think that that is the majority of Jersey City residents. I think Jersey City residents, who are mostly working class, blue collar, still a blue collar city primarily, concerned about crime. They're concerned about quality of life issues, taxes, and I think it would greatly help the progressives to touch on those issues more and focus a little less on some of the issues that they do focus on.
Aaron, a topic that I think that really transcends politics lately, and it's been under the microscope for some time. I had Bruce Alston, the editor of the Hudson County Chronicles, on recently. I'm going to have Bob Hurley on later on this summer. Liberty State Park, it seems like everyone has something to say about Liberty State Park, and everyone has an opinion about Liberty State Park. And I know we've talked about, on previous episodes on the other podcast, but it would seem like this issue is not cut and dry. And I think that there's still a lot of division. And as I said, it transcends politics. It's not a right issue or a left issue, a moderate, progressive, conservative, whatever, liberal. It's not about that. I think it's what our vision is and what we would like to see Liberty State Park become. It's a state park, okay? It's not like, and again, I was under the misconception again, and I'll call it out. When I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I was hoping maybe the city and the county can work with the state to do something with Liberty State Park. It's a state park. There's no way to, unless there's a legislative action to maybe split up revenues that are generated there. That's not the case. It's a state park. What's going on, in your opinion, in the sense of what's the best direction for Liberty State Park, though, Aaron? Because again, Hudson County Chronicles had something to say. I know they took you to task a little bit. We'll see what Bob Hurley has to say later on this summer on the show. How do you care to respond to some of the criticism against you in the Jersey City Times? But in general, how do you foresee the future for Liberty State Park?
Well, I think the future is being written, if you will, by Sean LaTourette and by the DEP. in conjunction with a lot of input from stakeholders and people on various committees. But it seems like La Tourette and the DEP are going with a plan that's fairly similar to the one they rolled out, a year or 2 years ago, which is to take the interior of the park, which is still toxic, and remediate that, and mostly devote that land to parkland, which means paths and green space. What we think of as a traditional park, to use some of that to bring in wetlands, to expand the wetlands, and tidal areas, which I know was an issue for the People's Park Foundation. They said they were turning it into a swamp, I think. But I think that's the future. It seems like the train's already left on that what Hurley's group and Fireman's group are going to get, or they're going to get maybe a little bit more in the way of active recreation than they had originally expected, more commitment to that. But I don't think it's going to be more than the 60 acres that was originally planned. But now I think there's a north section and a south section. Clearly, they made it an issue. What I would say, and I've been very clear on our editorial position on this, is that that there are lots of opportunities to expand active recreation in Jersey City. There's land, there are parks that are underutilized, and I think it's clear to me that the strategy of Paul Fireman, I think, and his surrogates was to try and push through sort of this massive plan for stadiums as a way to garner support for his other agenda, which of course had to do with Cave and Point and his and acquiring that, and his other efforts with respect to his golf course. I would love to see, Paul Fireman invest now in some of the existing facilities we have, like the Cave and Point athletic area, which is falling apart. Other parks. We have land in Jersey City that could be used, and if Paul Fireman is serious about athletics in Jersey City, there are all kinds of opportunities for him to invest in them without taking green space from Liberty State Park. So it was a false choice. It was a false dichotomy from the beginning. And I think there was a reason for that. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I think that's where the park is going. I think La Tourette is pretty committed to keeping it as green space, and not in favor of building stadiums.
Well, again, when we talked on a previous episode of my podcast, I was under the impression like, hey, listen, for me, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to have a small amphitheater or some way to generate revenue.
The amphitheater, I think an entertainment amphitheater is part of the plan.
Okay.
Something, Central Park-ish.
Sure.
I think that what the Friends of Liberty State Park crowd was saying was that, we don't want a mini Meadowlands. That's what they were saying, that we don't want parking lots that are empty 3/4 of the year, empty spaces, big structures, big buildings. That's what we don't want. I think that's what their position was.
No, certainly. Aaron, before I let you go, folks, it's 6:35 here on the East Coast. If you're just joining us live, sharing is caring. Click that share button. My guest tonight is the editor of the Jersey City Times, the great Aaron Morrill, joining us here on Real Talk. Aaron, before I let you go, it would seem that, a lot of people would always ask me, well, Fernando, you have a lot of opinions, and it seems like you know everything, or you think you know everything, and you have all the solutions. Why aren't you running for office? And my answer is always simple. I like what I do. I like working in education. I like being a broadcast journalist. I like certainly doing what I do with my brand of opinion journalism. And you know what? I'm having a lot of fun doing this, where, the chances of me being canceled, as an elected official are probably higher than me being canceled right now because I haven't been canceled yet. Do I maybe hear something where, listen, Amarillo seems to have a lot of answers and he's a policy guy, he's a policy nerd like yours truly. It seems like Amarillo will be the perfect fit to run for mayor in 2025 because he cares about Jersey City. He has a lot to say about Jersey City. So is there something you want to tell me tonight here on the air, bro?
You're not the first person to ask me that question. Believe it or not, people ask me that all the time. Why don't you just run? Because I do have a lot of opinions about, Jersey City and politics, and I do care a great deal. Look, I live here. This is my home. I walk out into the street, and if I see things that I don't like that are going on, they affect me, and that's why I'm passionate about them. And and I see, you see things going on that you don't like. I'm passionate about them. I'm a former Peace Corps volunteer. That's my that's kind of like who I am.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So, I think my talents right now are used, best doing what I'm doing. And
good answer. Good answer.
I've heard it used before, so I rolled it out. But I think the point is, I have great respect for people that do what our elected officials do. I think it's hard work. And at this point in my life, I'm getting up there in years. I want to do what I enjoy, and what I think I have hopefully some talent for. And I think there are some good people. I think there are good people, and I'm hoping more good people, jump in and run for office. And I think Jersey City has somewhat. I think it has a deep bench actually. So, the people we were talking about, I think there's some really good people, and, I think I can do what I'm doing and play a role that way.
Aaron, I don't know what you're talking about, bro. You don't look a day over 41. Come on, come on now. You got great skin. You're still handsome. Come on, bro. I mean, you don't look a day over 41 here. Give me a break.
It's the formaldehyde baths I take.
Oh, you're terrible. Aaron, real quick before I let you go, obviously I know he's the only declared candidate right now. I speculated as to other Democrats statewide that might challenge Stephen Fulop.
Yeah.
How do you see his chances? I mean, ultimately, I know that we've never seen a Democrat out of Hudson County win the gubernatorial seat. Obviously, there's a lot to be said about the influence of South Jersey Democrats, what say they're going to have, Central Jersey, maybe the Assembly Speaker, North Democrats. Listen, I don't think a Republican's going to win a gubernatorial seat anytime soon. I just don't see any good candidates. And, I get a lot of flack for that. I don't care. I just think that because of the registration advantages, I just think the way of getting out the vote and just the way that, again, the state Democratic Committee just operates. I just think that, Democrats have a decisive advantage statewide. I mean, I hope we can make some inroads this November legislatively. I'd like to see the state assembly and the state senate be a little redder, like my jacket. But how do you handicap Stephen Fulop's chances?
It's probably above my pay grade because I don't cover state politics. I mean, I know Mikey Sherrill and, I met Josh Gottheimer, but don't really have a feeling for sort of all of the factors that come into play on the state level. What I know the mayor very well, and I think he's extremely smart.
Yeah, he is.
Tactically, there is nobody that's smarter than he is. He is great at messaging. He is extremely good at, social media and media in general. He's very, very strong at. On the retail level, I don't think he's quite as strong. Is he going to go out, and slap backs and, kiss babies as well as some others? I don't think so. But I would never count the guy out. He's very smart and he's hardworking. So, who knows who's going to get into the race against him, but I wouldn't count him out.
Aaron, let me ask you this. After 8 years potentially of what, I would call a disaster that is the Emperor, Phil Murphy, do you think that could maybe hurt Stephen a little bit if he is the nominee? Again, I don't have a lot of faith in the Republican side, but do you think that after 8 years of Murphy and the state remaining unaffordable, the way he handled COVID, I think is going to come out eventually, wasn't as good as other governors. Do you think 8 years of Murphy could hurt Stephen Fulop if he is indeed the nominee?
Well, listen, I think it could hurt any Democrat because there is a perception that New Jersey is very expensive. People are, moving out to some degree. And, there are a lot of great things about New Jersey, schools,
Sure.
and things like that, but it is perceived as being overly expensive, and services are not as good as they could be. And look, the pendulum always swings. I mean, New Jersey can go either way. We've had a lot of Republican governors, so I wouldn't count a Republican out. And so I don't know if it'll be because of Murphy. I think it'll probably be because of bigger issues. I don't think people perceive Murphy as being the disaster you do coming from your perspective. I think people perceive him as being a pretty nice guy, and kind of.
No, Aaron, no, Aaron, hold on. I like him personally. He's a nice guy. I'm sure I'd go watch a ball game with him. I mean, I'd hate to go to a Yankee Red Sox game with him, but I'm sure I could grab a beer with the governor. But there's just so much policy-wise, affordability, taxation that just, I think it could really hurt a Democrat.
And I think some of these issues, like the schools staying closed too long, some tax issues. I mean, I think those things can come to bite him in the butt. And I think that I think there's always that pendulum. So the right Republican candidate could take out a Democrat. I mean, that's the reality in Jersey.
No, certainly. Aaron, before I let you go, man, listen, thank you so much for your time. Again, what I just appreciate about you is your candor, how informed you are, how just, again, it's what you bring to the table with the Jersey City Times. And folks, check out jcitytimes.com. It's a wonderful news site in Hudson County. And even if you don't live in Hudson County and want to just have a sense about what's going on in Hudson County's largest city, I would argue that, hey, you can rely on the Jersey City Times to give you, I think, a good perspective about everywhere in the city. And certainly its editor, I think, does a great job. I'm proud to call him a friend, and I appreciate you coming on the show here. Aaron, I'll give you the last word tonight here on Real Talk.
Yeah, so thanks so much, Fernando. It's a great pleasure to talk to you. I love talking Jersey City, love talking politics, love talking about all this stuff. And thank you so much. I'm honored to be on your show.
No, man, listen, the honor is mine. I respect you wholeheartedly, and I think what you're doing is tough. I think at times maybe, you feel like, oh, God, this is such a, I don't know, just not a very fruitful enterprise, but you keep at it, and you keep chugging out, and you keep putting out good content and really good investigative pieces. I think that is as good as anybody that I've seen locally in quite some time. So, folks, check out jcitytimes.com. Great staff there, folks. The editor, Aaron Morrill, joins us here tonight on Real Talk. Aaron, by the way, have a happy Father's Day coming up, and for the rest of the family. And we'll talk to you soon here on Jersey First TV.
Thanks.
Have a good night. Take care.
Good night.
Folks, great episode there with Aaron Morrill, again, the editor of the Jersey City Times. And again, I can't say enough, folks, about the need for websites and news sites like the Jersey City Times. When we've seen circulation die out, for example, with the Hudson Reporter, both tangibly and also obviously digitally, the Jersey Journal also sort of dying a very slow death. It's refreshing to see news sites in Hudson County still remaining relevant, right? Obviously, Hudson County View with John Hines as its editor, Hudson TV with its editor, Julio Reynoso. Certainly, Real Garden State to some extent. I know Michael Sherman is still publishing some content. But when it comes to Jersey City, folks, again, whether you like them or you don't like them, there's no denying the work ethic, the commitment, and really, I think the very fresh and different perspective that Aaron Morrill brings to the Jersey City Times. And it's not just him, folks. I mean, there's a good staff there. Okay, there's very interesting op-eds, and there's certainly very good coverage about what's going on once again in Hudson County's largest city. So again, a shout out to him and a special thank you to Aaron Morrill for his appearance tonight. Folks, before I call it a night here, some final thoughts. And listen, I have to tell you that I talk about it all the time on this show, where I'm the only guy in Garden State media that's talking about the issues that matter. And let me be very clear here, because I know that some people will misconstrue it or take things out of context, but let me be very clear. Okay? I know why June is significant, not just because of the birthday celebration of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe, which debuted again 3 years ago on June the 1st, in the height of the pandemic in 2020, via Eyes on NJ News, and subsequently it's transitioned now into Jersey First TV as we continue on here throughout 2023. I couldn't be happier to be a part of the Jersey First team. But one of the things that, obviously we know June is important for, obviously, is Pride Month. And let me be very clear, folks. Listen, I'm someone that gets very libertarianish about, I would argue, about civil rights. And certainly, listen, love who you love. I'm not going to bother you. You're not going to bother me, and that's fine. But as a conservative, I think what bothers me, and I think a lot of us, and again, forget about the intolerant, bigoted, right-wing type of zealots. That's not who I am. And I think if you watch this show enough, you would see that. Now, again, some people on the left and many in the liberal media establishment in New Jersey would say otherwise, but that's not the case. But what bothers me, I think, about a lot of the discussions this month is some facts. And some facts that, again, I have shared on other shows, and I have yet to hear anybody refute me. Okay? Now, again, you can see that, obviously, when it comes to virtue signaling, when it comes to sort of shoving things down our throat, okay, no one does it better, ladies and gentlemen, than Insider NJ. It's General Manager Pete O'Nelia, and it's Editor Max Pizarro. But when it comes to virtue signaling, folks, again, nobody, without a doubt, does it better than the chief of virtue signaling, okay, in New Jersey. All right. And that's Jay Lassiter. And Jay Lassiter published a piece this week talking about, and of course, we all know that the all-out power list will come out later this month. Obviously, it's a tribute to the politically influential LGBTQ plus individuals in New Jersey politics, which comes out later in the month. But certainly, he published a column as it pertains to straight allies, as he mentioned, to whet your appetite. I'm not going to bore you with this, but some of the people he mentions here, like Andrew Zwicker, and, I get it, folks. Andrew Zwicker is one of those, allies for Jay Lassiter. He's also the same guy that makes your shopping insufferable. He's the same, sort of woke Democrat in Trenton that thinks that the plastic bag man was a good idea. Okay. While he continues to virtue signal and pander, obviously that doesn't go unnoticed by Jay Lassiter. Right. But you can read the column itself, and you can sort of, look at what it represents, and certainly some of the other allies, Teresa Ruiz, who, again, that woman never misses a chance to pander when it comes election time or in general, whether it's about LGBTQ curriculum in our public schools or anything else. Right. As well as Anjali Malhotra, former guest on the show, former president of the National Organization for Women in the New Jersey chapter. A lot of insufferable people on this list, folks. And it's not because they're defending LGBT people. That's fine. Okay. I believe in civil rights too. Okay. I understand that as a straight male, no one's ever going to dislike me for being straight. There's plenty of reasons to dislike Fernando Uribe, but being heterosexual isn't one of them. And I understand that. So I'm not oblivious to the struggles and I think a lot of the adversity that some in the LGBT community face. Okay. But folks, there's a truth I think that a lot of people don't want to talk about in New Jersey politics. Okay. And it's one that, again, and I'll read it to you. And I've said this on other shows. You can see it behind me. Okay. But I'll read it to you. And again, dear LGBTQ community in New Jersey, if you don't want to be treated differently for being gay or everything else, then stop acting like gay somehow makes you special, because it doesn't. Your sexual orientation is neither an achievement nor a holiday. You have not accomplished anything by simply being attracted to one sex or the other. That's true. Now, again, I'm trying to say it as objectively as possible. Now, I understand that some people are going to look at that and say, oh my God, that's bigoted. It's not. Okay. Sometimes you have to kind of say things for what they are. Okay. But another thing that Jay won't tell you, because he'd rather virtue signal, he'd rather evoke this climate of victimhood, which he excels in. Okay. But here's a harsh truth that I have yet to hear one person anywhere on social media refute. Okay. And it's very simple. Okay. I'm going to read it to you because I've written it on other shows and I've talked about it on other panels. The LGBTQ community is the most privileged minority in history, and that's a fact. Every institution goes out of the way to honor and celebrate them. Laws are altered to cater to their emotions. Society has been rearranged to validate and affirm them. That's not what Pride Month's about. It's about honoring and raising awareness about civil rights. It's not about affirmation. But again, more on that later. Yet, they still say they're oppressed. Yet, you go on Jay Lasseter's social media. Yet, you read Jay Lasseter's columns, all right, if they're not putting you to sleep, okay? But somehow he's going to still make you believe that he and his fellow brethren and sisters in the LGBTQ community are oppressed. They're not. They're not. Now, what the alphabet mob has done with the enabling by the American left, Hollywood elites, and the liberal media, not just in New Jersey, but nationally, is that they've created a privileged class, which, folks, I'm going to say it for everybody in the back, that has nothing to do with equity. It just doesn't. Essentially, it's now better to identify as LGBTQ than to be a veteran in the United States. That's just facts. Because you'll get senior political positions, nonprofit money. And here's the kicker, because Jake sells at this. And if anyone disagrees with you, hey, you get to cry hate crime, which is what he likes to do. The low-hanging fruit. If you don't agree with what he says, or other members of the Lollipop Guild at Insider NJ, or a lot of his enablers and his defenders in the peanut gallery, it's the low-hanging fruit. You're a blank phobe. You're a blankist. Folks, that doesn't help anything in the dialogue. It just doesn't. It just doesn't. Okay? And that's one of the things that, again, brings me to my next point. Okay? You want to have pride events. You want to raise awareness about equality and equity, which are not the same things. Okay? But the idea that, and this is something Jay Lasseter won't tell you about. Okay? And these are the pictures I can't show you on this show because it's a PG family-friendly program. Okay? So the idea that, oh, pride events are not anywhere what the right wing is saying, no, folks, they are. Because these are photos that I've gathered from not just events in New York City nearby, in New Jersey, but around the country. Okay? The idea, folks, you can believe in equality and the preservation of rights. But the idea that someone believes, whether it be Jay Lasseter or other advocates or propagandists, whether it be Insider NJ, whether it be NJ Spotlight News, whether it be Political NJ, the New Jersey Monitor, NorthJersey.com, the Star Ledger, NJ.com, take your pick. Because they're all enabling this. Okay? The idea, folks, that during a pride event, if you think this is appropriate for children, there's something wrong. There just is. It doesn't make me a bigot. It doesn't make me a homophobe or a transphobe. Okay? This is what we're seeing at pride events. Okay? Now, again, all the aforementioned news sites won't tell you that because they'd rather carry buckets of water for the left and for the alphabet mob. Okay? And these are the photos that I can actually show you on the air. Okay? These are not climates, folks, for our kids to be subjected to. They're just not. Now, I don't have any kids that I know of, but the idea that I'm speaking up for parents in New Jersey that are viewing this and are object to it, there's nothing wrong with that. But yet you have parents like you see this I would argue this irresponsible, reprehensible mom exposing an infant to this. Folks, that's not healthy. Okay? It just isn't. And that doesn't make me intolerant. It doesn't make me bigoted. It doesn't make me homophobic. What it makes me is a concerned resident, homeowner, taxpayer, journalist, New Jersey. Okay? The idea that we think that this is what goes on at pride events and under the guise of tolerance and inclusion and diversity, and that somehow this is a healthy perspective for children to be exposed to, it isn't. It just isn't. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I'm not trying to create hysteria, folks. You search for it, you're going to find it. One thing is a pride event where you want to go and speak about equal rights and equity. That's all well and good. Folks, that's not what we're seeing. And I'm the only journalist in New Jersey that's raising awareness about this. But yet, I'll be called a homophobe, a transphobe, and everything else. Folks, I'm none of those things. What I am is a concerned person speaking up for parents who don't have the voice or the reach that I do. Because, folks, contrary to what Jay Lasseter, the Lollipop Guild, and the Peanut Gallery that enable him, and we all know what they are, right? Old, tired-ass men and women on his social media news feeds, okay, that enable him and prop him up and just sort of clap around like it's like seals at the circus. You ever see seals at the circus? When they're waiting for a fish as it's being dangled there in the fish tank. Okay. And for a guy that really hates conservatives, or for a guy that really hates the way conservative governors run their states, man, you check out his social media feed. The guy can't stop going to Florida. Wow. Florida must not be that bad, Jay, if you keep visiting it as often as you do. But again, don't let the facts get in the way of your virtue signaling, because that's not convenient for you. Okay. But again, folks, this is what we're exposing our kids to. So when parents in the Roxbury School District decide to go to a Board of Ed meeting and voice their disapproval about certain books and about certain content and curriculum being available to children as young as 5, yeah, they have a right to object. Because guess what? They're homeowners. Okay. They pay property taxes. Property taxes pay for public schools. Okay. Now I know that for Jay last year, that's foreign territory when you're home in Cherry Hill living off your husband's income and smoking weed all day. Yeah, I get it. It doesn't affect him directly. But for parents that have children sent to public schools in New Jersey, what the parents did in Roxbury, New Jersey, hey, I applaud them, because somebody has to stand up to this nonsense. And folks, we've enabled it little by little, as I mentioned. Okay? Hollywood elites, the liberal media, academia, you name it. They've enabled and empowered the alphabet mob for some years now. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. You just can't. But the idea that we raise awareness about it, like parents in Roxbury did and other school districts throughout the state, doesn't make those parents bigoted. It makes them, if anything else, concerned parents. Okay? Now, as I mentioned before, the pictures I just showed you tonight, folks, are pictures I can show you that are actually appropriate for television. It doesn't take that much effort. You can look them up yourselves. You can see how harmful these images are, and to expose children as young as 3 years old at supposedly family-friendly pride events, I'm not buying it, folks. Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying, because that's just not what's happening. And unfortunately, as I said before, when it comes to irresponsible journalism and not calling this out, really? Should we rely on Insider NJ? Of course not. Should we rely on Matt Friedman, for example, from Political NJ, who's too busy scratching one of his 10 cats on a porch there, an hour and a half away from New Jersey? Should we rely on Uncle Dave, David Cruz, NJ Spotlight News, who I don't know, is too busy, thinking about what sandwich to buy next at the food court at the Gateway Center? Or Charles Stile, who's too busy virtue signaling as well? Or Terrence McDonald with the New Jersey Monitor? Or Tom Moran? Take your pick, folks. None of these propagandists, that's what they are. That's what they've become. They're no longer journalists. The idea that they don't want to stick up for parents and, hey, stand up for them like I am. Again, I don't expect you to do it as good as I do, because you're not going to. But the idea that somehow we're vilifying parents and taxpayers for standing up for kids, for raising awareness that exposing kids to this is not healthy. Folks, again, you can believe in equal rights, you can believe in equity, you can believe in equality, you can believe in standing up for LGBTQ people who, again, have been marginalized. There's no question about that. But the idea that now Pride Month, and again, I can't wait for June 30th. Actually, I can't wait for July 1st. Just be done with this month. It's become more insufferable every month, every year for as long as I can remember. But for parents sticking up for children, for educators standing up for children, for advocates standing up for children, there's nothing wrong with that. We see it in Roxbury. We're seeing it all throughout the state of New Jersey. I applaud those parents, because they're the only ones doing that. And as far as journalists in the sort of media echo chamber in New Jersey, folks, yours truly, I'm the only one standing up for parents. None of the aforementioned are doing that. They'd rather virtue signal. They would rather, bloviate and minimize, those are just right-wingers and conservatives, conjuring up hysteria. No, we're not doing that. I'm certainly not. But when it comes to conjuring up hysteria against conservatives and virtue signaling, nobody does it better, folks, than Jay Lassiter. It's pretty embarrassing. It's pretty embarrassing for Insider NJ. But what else is new? When it comes to embarrassing and embarrassment to journalism, yeah, you can always rely on this guy and Insider NJ. Once again, folks, that's our show for this week. I want to thank Aaron Morrill, the editor of the Jersey City Times, for a very informative program tonight. I also want to thank him for the good work he does with the Jersey City Times. Check him out at jcitytimes.com. And of course, folks, always check us out on all of our social media. Please like Real Talk with Fernando Uribe on Facebook, of course, as well as Jersey First. Don't forget to follow Jersey First on Instagram and Twitter. Also, check me out on Instagram and Twitter at the Fernando Zone. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Jersey First on YouTube. And of course, wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify or SoundCloud, download it and take them anywhere at any time. Whether you're driving down on Mondays to Tiki Bar, right, and you're sitting in traffic on the Parkway, hey, tune into Jersey First and all of our great programming. Whether you're going to the gym to kind of work off those little winter pounds before the summer, well, as the summer is really underway, whether you're going to concerts, whether, hey, maybe you're hitting the dating scene and want to slim up a little bit, download Jersey First, folks, and take it with you wherever and whenever you travel during the summer here in 2023. And always remember, folks, excellent programming and content is always brought to you by the dream team of Garden State Media. Yes, folks, it's me, Fernando Uribe, along with the Jersey First team. Of course, brand new episodes of The Nader Narrative premiere on Thursdays with the amazing Elizabeth Nader. And of course, brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap with the incredible AJ Malilo and Stephen Rombolo premiere also on Thursdays. And of course, Real Talk with Fernando Uribe comes to you live every Monday night. It may fluctuate 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, but brand new episodes air every Monday night via jerseyfirst.org/TV. Folks, hey, whether it's educating, empowering, or entertaining, nobody does it better than Jersey First TV. Folks, again, before I call it a night, I do want to again remind you all, happy birthday once again to Real Talk with Fernando Uribe as we celebrate 3 years and counting here on the air online every week via Facebook Live on StreamYard, also on YouTube. Of course, folks, without you, my loyal viewing audience, this accomplishment would not be possible. And speaking about accomplishments, yes, I can still brag a little bit because, of course, when we talk about accomplishments, yes, folks, traffic continues to be very strong on Real Talk with Fernando Uribe, as you can see there. Actually, I just checked it. It's close to 13,000 plus and counting, folks, for the traffic in the month of May. And, of course, great traffic in the month of June so far. I cannot say it enough. Without all of you at home watching live, sharing the replays, family, friends, frenemies, colleagues, haters, whatever, fellow colleagues in journalism, which I'll use the term loosely. Again, you can't help yourselves. You know you're tuning in every Monday night. And again, I thank all of you for making this accomplishment possible. And folks, when we talk about traffic, right? Yeah, you know what? I get a little braggadocious and yeah, maybe I should be a little more humble. No, I don't think so. Because when we talk about accomplishments, while people like Tom Moran, right, and Max Pizarro and Jay Lassiter and Alan Steinberg, right, and anybody else, academics, advocates, whoever's doing videos, right, or writing columns and putting you to sleep, guess what, folks? You know what? The aforementioned, they can't even get people in Bogota, New Jersey, in Bergen County to read them or watch them. But guess what? All the way down south in the continent of South America, we got Jersey First broadcasting, and we got fans all the way down in Bogota, Colombia. Folks, again, when it comes to those journalists, academics, and advocates, and that mediocrity, when it comes to their journalism over here, yeah, we're not the same. Greatness, folks, comes to you live every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern time here, Jersey First. And of course, whether it's in Bogota, New Jersey or Bogota, Colombia, they're watching me. They're definitely not watching them, folks. So a shout out to my cousin, Jason, allá en Colombia. Te quiero mucho, primo. Thanks for rocking and representing Jersey First back in Colombia. Folks, Jersey First, it's everywhere worldwide. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Again, I cannot say enough. Again, that traffic, it speaks for itself every single week. When some journalists or attempt to be journalists wake up in the morning and say, I don't know. Can I be great today? Can I come up with good traffic? Yeah, some people just wake up and say, I don't know. I think I can be great today. Yeah, those people wake up hoping they can be great. Folks, Fernando Uribe just wakes up and he's just great. We're not the same. Once again, folks, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Share the replays. Sharing is caring. I do want to thank Jersey City Times editor Aaron Morrill for an exceptional episode tonight. Folks, share the replays. Hey, thank you so much for supporting us here. In advance, I want to wish all the dads coming up this weekend a very happy Father's Day. Shout out to my dad, Fernando Uribe Sr., and my uncle, Daniel Uribe Sr. You got a little surprise coming for Father's Day. You definitely want to stay tuned for that. But to all the fathers out there, love you all. God bless you. Keep up the good work. And have a happy Father's Day to all of you out there. And for all of you that support Jersey First TV, thank you so much, folks. Again, enjoy the weekend. Please party responsibly. Always remember, if you can't be good, be bad, baby. Thank you so much for watching, folks. Always, Jersey First TV here, Real Talk with Fernando Uribe. Folks, have a great rest of your night. And I'll see you next Monday night here on Jersey First TV.